Now, if you're looking at buying a new 2024 Road Glide this year, you have some pretty big decisions. We have in this corner the 2024 Road Glide like mine, okay? It's one model. You go with your black trim, your chrome trim, go with the paint that you want. And so you'll be anywhere from $26,000 up to $28,000. And then on this side, we have the CVO Road Glide ST, which is coming in at $44,000. And so you may be thinking, well, which way do I really want to go here? Is the ST really worth the upgrades? And that's what I'm going to hopefully answer today as I give you the 7 biggest differences between these two motorcycles. I'm going to try to focus on the most important differences, the things that you would consider like, man, this bike has this or this one doesn't. I could do this with this bike potentially and maybe get it up to here. So there's going to be a lot of good information in here. And like I said, hopefully I can help you out in your decision making. If you're looking at getting one of these new motorcycles and you like honest reviews or comparisons or 7 best accessories for motorcycles, whatever motorcycle related content that you are looking for, I have a ton of it right here on the channel. So if you like what I do, consider subscribing and make sure you turn your notifications on so you never miss a brand new video from me. If you want to support me further, you can do that on Patreon, join the Shot Squad over there, or right here on YouTube and gain access to some pretty cool perks. Let's go ahead and get into it. Now, since we're talking about the biggest thing, I'm going to go ahead and cover one of the biggest things, which are the engines. So we have the 117 in the new Road Glide. That's the only motor option that's there. And so this 117 though is a little bit different than the STs that we found in previous models. So we have like 3% more horsepower, 4% more torque compared to the other 117s. And then when you compare that to the 114, you're like 11% more horsepower and 7% more torque. Now, you may not think that's a big difference, and on paper, I guess it's really not, but the engineers have actually done quite a few things to not only make this motor produce more horsepower and torque, but it's also smoother. Now, they're doing this a couple different ways. We have a new cooling system, we have a new head design, but we're also getting more air and less restrictive air into the system. Because of that new intake track, the air can get into the throttle body, and again, we have a bigger air box to allow more air to get in. So those little changes may not sound like a lot, but compared to the 114 and with the weight reduction on this motorcycle, it actually feels a heck of a lot sportier than that of the 114. The old girl has lost a few pounds and she's sucking in more air. And this really doesn't sound like a motorcycle review at this point, but I promise you those two things have made a huge difference with the addition of ride modes as well. Now, when we go to the Road Glide ST, we have some pretty crazy numbers here. You're looking at 145 foot-pounds of torque and 127 horsepower. Typically, those types of numbers in the bagger world are reserved for like your liquid-cooled motors, but Harley was able to do this and get these kind of numbers out of their new 121. Now again, all of those same changes I talked about with the 117 apply to the 121, but of course we have more displacement here as well. And you have the high-performance camshaft, the high airflow intake, and a red line that extends up to 5,900 RPMs. All of this combined with 2 additional ride modes, which were inspired in big part by Kyle Wyman. And when you get this thing on the track, it is an absolute monster. This is the first bike we rode out in Las Vegas, and I'm going to tell you here and now, it pretty much sold me on getting a new motorcycle. And I thought, dude, I'm going to have to shell out some money in order to get this bike. But fortunately, the 117, the new 117, is pretty good. The difference here is not minimal, so I don't want to discount it that much because that 121 high output motor is just, it's just fun. I mean, it really is. But I guess it really depends on what you're doing. If you're doing more track inspired stuff, or, you know, you really, you know, are into the throttle heavily and that's just kind of your riding style, the ST might be the better way to go just based on the motor alone. And plus, with it being the way it is instead of the VVT motor, you can build upon that, of course. Now you can do the same thing with the 117. But I just got to tell you, the 121 is just, it's a special engine. Right from the factory, those numbers are crazy, and you can feel that compared to the 117. If you're looking to build upon an engine, that 117, the new one from Harley this year, though, is absolutely fantastic. I can feel the difference compared to my 114, and I think dropping a few pounds off of the bike really helped out a lot there as well with the additional ride modes. So this one I wouldn't call a draw. This one I would say the ST is definitely a step above, but we can always take our 117 and get it up to that point. There's a lot of people that don't want to take a $44,000 machine and break the bike down. You know, it just makes them feel some kind of way, and I kind of agree with that. On its own, though, that ST is just an absolute monster. So yes, that motor is better, but again, you can save yourself quite a bit of money and do it over time with the 117, and I still think it's a hell of an upgrade from the old 114s, and definitely a big upgrade from the 107s. Another big difference that you're going to get on the ST are the carbon fiber parts. Now, they've dropped even more weight on the ST, and so you'll notice some things that are missing off of this CVO that almost every model before it had, like the rear bag speakers, also the quick lock and unlock saddlebags. And again, they were trying to shave weight everywhere they could, and then of course they added the carbon fiber fender, tank console, the rear cap, and of course you have the titanium mufflers and then the carbon fiber slip-ons. Now, all of this stuff you could actually add from the 117. Now, I actually ended up getting the forged carbon fiber console from Harley. They sent it to me so I could try it out, and I think it looks amazing against the Whiskey Fire tank, that paint job, but it won't have that special badging, so that's just something that's going to be exclusive to the ST. So while you can get the fender, the tail cap, and the tank console and put them on a regular Road Glide, you're just going to be missing the badging, of course. So when it comes to those carbon fiber parts, they look really good. I personally just, aesthetically, it really appeals to me. But I don't know that I would necessarily go with an ST because of that stuff, unless you're just crazy about the badging. I think I'd stick with the regular Road Glide and then add that stuff on if you want to later down the line. And I think this leads us perfectly into some of those accents that you're going to get on the ST that you will not get on the regular Road Glide. And by the way, when I talk about all of these decals or emblems, if I kind of, use those terms interchangeably, just remember that all of this stuff is painted in. It's not like stickers that I'm talking about on the CVO, but the Fast Johnny emblem that's on the left side cover, the CVO badging that's on the bags, the laser engraved wheels. You have, of course, the top of the rocker boxes and the push rod tubes that all have the, red accents to them. These are things, of course, you could add to the Road Glide at some point, but those little things, those little styling differences between the two motorcycles, I don't know, it just makes it stand out, especially I think on the black, the Raven Metallic version of the ST. All of that red just really pops on that motorcycle, and while I think I prefer the golden white pearl, still overall, that Raven Metallic just looks so sick, dude. I really like that against the red. It looks good. The regular Road Glide, you can do all that stuff, right? I mean, you can. Some of it's not easy to do necessarily, and it's going to cost you quite a bit of money. So that styling stuff, I mean, I would say the ST definitely has it going on with that stuff, and I think it looks really good from the factory. If you're not into that, if red isn't your thing, or you're not a fan of the badging, that's just your opinion, I guess, but I think it looks really good. So the ST definitely has a styling advantage over the regular Road Glide. You're going to see a bunch of Road Glides out there. You're going to see a bunch of regular street glides out there. But when you see that CVO, I still think, even though that some of these things can be swapped between the bikes, I still think the CVO stands on its own, and you kind of know that bike is something special when you see it, especially in person. Another big difference between the bikes is the collections that are on them. Now, on the Road Glide, you're going to have the Streamliner collection. So your floorboards, your brake pedal, your passenger pegs, it's all going to be Streamliner. They've used that as a standard feature or whatever now for a few years at least, if not since the Rushmore project bike. So the Streamliners, pretty much standard, and that's what you're going to get on the regular Road Glide. On the ST, you're actually going to get the Switchback Collection. Your hand grips, they are non-heated, by the way, on the CVO model, but Switchback, you have the miniature floorboards from the Switchback Collection, brake pedal, all of that is going to come standard on the ST version. Now, you can add that stuff onto the Road Glide. So you'll notice that there's actually quite a few parts here that are interchangeable, which is interesting because in years past, from what I understand, CVO has always been kind of like that exclusive, club almost. But a lot of these parts you can actually swap over to the Road Glide, which makes this decision a little bit more interesting this year. Another thing that you're going to get on the ST that you will not get on the Road Glide, but again, something that can be added, is the flat out bar in the front. So on the regular Road Glide, you're going to get the chopped engine guards. Look a lot better than the old big, wide engine guards that we had, even up until, 2022, I think is when the last year they used the big ones, maybe 2021. But the chop guards look really good. In my opinion, though, the flat out bar just looks 20 times better. It's got that performance bagger look to it. It really fits the bike nicely. And not only that, you actually have the little kind of fairing extension. I don't know exactly what Harley Davidson calls it, but up under the fairing, you have that little bit of a plastic piece that goes down, kind of wraps around a little bit around that flat out bar. And again, just kind of adds to the performance bagger styling. But again, these are things that you can throw on your Road Glide. So you're starting to see a little bit of a pattern here where a lot of this stuff, minus badging of course, can be thrown on the regular Road Glide. So it's looking pretty good actually for the Road Glide. But here's one area where I don't know that there is really a comparison, and that's in the suspension. Now, let me go ahead and say, on the regular Road Glide, they retuned the front forks, and you actually have more control over your preloads in the rear. So you have the ability to preload for you and your passenger, and then of course you can fine tune on the left hand side of the bike with the knob, for any additional weight that's in the saddlebags or tour packs. So they actually give you a good variety there, and I honestly think this bike rides better than any of the previous models. They did a really nice job, and they kind of knew, hey, we're dropping weight, we're doing all this kind of stuff. We want this bike to be as nimble as it can. So by retuning those front forks, I think they did a really fantastic job. With that said, though, the ST is it's on another level. You have the inverted front forks, and then you also have the dual outboard emulsion shocks in the rear on the ST. Now, I also wanted to mention we have an extra inch of travel in the rear on both motorcycles, but with the inverted front forks, the ST just feels a heck of a lot more nimble. Now, one thing I did not get to do with the ST that I have since got to do with my regular Road Glide is long distance traveling. So how does the ST do on, bumps and potholes and all of that kind of stuff? I don't know. All I can do is take a guess and say that if it's anything like the Road Glide or just, on the same level, then it's better, way better than any of the previous models before it. It really is light years above what they've done from the factory on both motorcycles, and so I can tell you, as far as turning into corners and being super nimble, the ST, it's just crazy good. On the regular Road Glide side, as far as hitting potholes and still feeling nimble, it definitely feels like a different motorcycle compared to the models before it. I definitely say the ST, though, here still shines above what the Road Glide is. Now, you know as well as I do that suspension for any motorcycle, really any vehicle on the road, is super expensive. So if that's not something that you're wanting to get into for whatever reason, the ST might be the better option here when it comes to that, because they definitely did, you know, pay a ton of attention to the front end and the rear shocks on the ST. Another big difference you'll notice between the two bikes is the handlebar position. Now, on the regular Road Glide, this is one of the most comfortable motorcycles I think I've ever been on straight from the factory, because they've put these kind of mini apes on here, which are super comfortable. So when you're looking at footage of me riding my Road Glide, my arms are basically, I got a little bit of bend in my elbow, and my shoulders are up, my arms are like right here. You have 27 degrees of adjustability in the riser. By the way, you know, the cluster's gone, so you can just adjust it, boom, right there in the riser. It's super easy to do now. On the ST, it's actually a little bit different. They now have a new 6-inch riser, and the bars are actually set up differently as well. So I'd almost compare it to like a performance type of cruiser, which I still found it pretty comfortable, but not as comfortable on the regular Road Glide. So personally, I want to be back in my seat a little bit, and I want to kind of be in the bike, if that makes sense. On the ST, I kind of feel like I'm on the bike, and you're kind of always in that, you know, semi-aggressive position. That's just kind of the feel that I got from both motorcycles. So while I don't think the ST is a bad position, nor do I think it's uncomfortable, having a back issue, that's kind of where I always lean towards, is the comfort of the ride. And that's one thing I could say about the regular Road Glide and the standard bars that comes on it. To me, I find it a little bit more comfortable. And the last thing that you want to consider, which was a big deciding factor for me, including a couple of other things that I'm going to talk about here in a minute, is the colors, right? And so on the STs, of course, they're going to be more limited. They're typically going to be hand painted, right? And you only have two options. You have the Raven Metallic, which is the black, and then the white golden pearl. In my opinion, these look much better than what they had in the 23.5 CVOs, which was like the whiskey neat and then that just basic silver. So anyways, there was a huge price difference between those two. You know, it was like $6,000 for the whiskey neat. Now everything's come back down, and I really like the white golden pearl. I really like it, but I think I like the Raven Metallic too. If it wasn't black, and I know how black paint does over time, you know, it's easy to get swirl marks. You got to keep it clean more often, and that ain't my style. But I really think it looks good right off of the showroom floor. So anyways, those are the two options you have there. And then on the regular Road Glide, you're going to have a number of different options. Now the whiskey orange is the one that really just kind of I instantly gravitated towards, because it just looks awesome with the orange accents. And again, that's another thing that you have an option of with the regular series, or, you know, Road Glide, is the fact that you have either chrome or black. And my buddy actually bought one of the scorched orange with you know, silver. It's kind of like a dark gray stripes on it, the Road Glide Limited, a few years ago, and I really loved the look of that motorcycle. And because the Whiskey Fire, you kind of get like a deep dark red in certain lighting, just because of the way the paint reflects and the lines on the bike. You know, kind of seemed natural for me to go that direction, coming from the Billiard Red 2020 Road Glide Special that I had before. Aside from that, you have the Alpine Blue, you have the Shark Skin, you have, of course, the white, and that one has more of a blue tint to it in certain sunlights, as opposed to the golden color on the ST. You have black, you have billiard gray, I'm sure there's one that I'm missing in there, the Alpine Green as well. So you have all of these different options, and personally, like I said, the Whiskey Fire, I just really love the color of that motorcycle, and that was a big deciding factor for me. But also the price. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh yeah, I absolutely would have bought the ST if it had all this. No, I mean, dude, the price for me was perfect on the Whiskey Fire, and it allowed me to get into that motorcycle much easier than what I could on one of the STs. It's just a little too rich for my blood. I guess I need a few more subscribers in order to make those work. But either way, man, I find it, where if I'm at 28,000 and then you put 5 or 6 into it, you're still under what that ST is, and you can be just, your bike can be just as badass as the ST, if not more so, because you have maybe some more customizable options there, and it's not going to hurt as much when you break into that $26,000 or $28,000 motorcycle as it will the $44,000 motorcycle. So those were some of the deciding factors for me. But honestly, when it comes to both motorcycles, they're pretty freaking awesome, and I'm pretty fortunate that I got the chance to ride both of them. So it really comes down to, if you like the way the ST looks from the factory, you want the biggest, baddest motor, you want the additional ride modes, you want the carbon fiber parts, you want the special badging, and the exclusivity of the CVO, those customers are still out there. And Robert, be the boss of your motorcycle, that's what he bought. He tends to always buy the CVOs, and there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you like, then that's what you like. Me personally, took a little bit cheaper route, and I'm going to kind of build it up to what I want it to be. Both motorcycles are fantastic, but that's the route that I took. Now, I'd love to hear from the community. Which one would you rather go with? If given the option, would you rather go with the ST? Would you rather build up the regular Road Glide? Do you think the 117 is sufficient? Would it be maybe the motor or the paint or some of these other things that we talked about that would be the deciding factor for you? I'd love to hear from you guys down below. Again, if you like what I do, consider subscribing. I have a ton of videos on the channel. I'm sure there's something else here that you would like to watch. And if you want to support what I do, consider subscribing. You could also join us on Patreon or become a part of the Shot Squad right here on YouTube. Big thanks. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.